This one we have to approach delicately. It's a wild Joe Enders at work. Got to be careful approaching this one because they're known to bite and be vicious. So you have to poke and prod gently. Joe Enders, I have a question for you. What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving?
Well, I would say the first thing that you shouldn't talk about at Thanksgiving is probably Kanye West, because I think he might be a little bit of a polarizing figure at the moment.
What about anything else, Joe?
Yeah, something you should talk about at Thanksgiving dinner is becoming a premium subscriber to Church Militant, because good grief, that would be a big help to all of us. So all of you better donate. And Ronan, I know you're going to donate.
All right,
give me your wallet
cut
right
it,
now.
cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it. What's going on, everybody? Happy almost Thanksgiving, or if you're watching on Thanksgiving, thank you for taking some of your time with your family to watch Red Top Report. This one's only going to be like 10 minutes, I promise.
10 minutes, I promise. 10 minutes, I promise.
We're going to go around and ask the Church Militant staff what conversations we should be having at the Thanksgiving dinner, or maybe shouldn't be having. We'll let you know right after this. So we're going to go around and ask everybody so essentially we're going to pop up at your desk and we're going to say, hey, James, what should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
James?
So just anticipate that. We're going to do that after Angelus and Dividers.
So can you exclude Joe? Can you not do Joe?
Yeah, except Joe Anders. Oh, hey, Jake.
Hello.
A question for you. What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
You should talk about what makes you so sleepy after eating all that turkey. I know about an interesting chemical that is in turkey that people may not know, and I'm not going to reveal it now so I don't spoil it for my family. You should talk about that and Kanye West.
Thank you so much, Jake. Hey, Jake, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, too. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
All righty. Mr. B-Rad, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
What should people talk about or not talk about briefly at Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, what's on the menu? I say put your food where your mouth is, But also, how are people doing spiritually? Where are they coming from? How's the relationship with church? A lot of people say they're spiritual but not too religious. That doesn't quite make sense for Catholics. And I think all of us have fallen away, members of the church, members of our family that have fallen away from the church. And somehow to go there, in a non-confrontational way. Yeah, it's a challenge for all of us. But
what if it's just too uncomfortable, Brad?
Well, you are in front of everybody and all that. Sometimes these things can maybe be a conversation starter, and you can go ahead and take it somewhere else at another moment. But I think the best way to look at it is planting a seed, maybe opening a door for a future conversation. Pricking a conscience out there, seeing what may come of it.
Brad, happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Rodney.
Yes.
May I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, the big rule is don't talk about religion or politics, but I find those are probably the most important things to talk about, especially because in light of the recent, midterm elections, they're both intimately related. And I don't know, everybody's talking about it. So go ahead and break the rule, talk about religion and politics. And you might be able to do that with somebody that you don't get to see all that often.
But what if I'm shy and uncomfortable and I don't want to talk about uncomfortable things?
Then I guess listen to people. Be a good listener, especially if, somebody comes to you with spiritual worries or something. If you start out as being a good listener, then, hopefully you can impart some good, spiritual wisdom to them by doing that.
Amen. Happy Thanksgiving, Rodney.
You too.
Mr. Nick Wiley.
Mr. Joe Gallagher.
May I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
What should people talk about or maybe not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, so like Our Lady says, penance, penance, penance. So I think the way to start that is prayer, fasting, almsgiving, the three things that church tells us to do. Without those, soul's probably not looking too good. Might not make it to heaven. So just talk about those things.
But what if it's uncomfortable?
I think that a way to start would be to talk about Advent that's coming up. What are you going to do for Advent? It's a minor penitential season. What kind of penances are you going to do for that? And so then you can work your conversation from there. Just talk about, okay, so what can we do more in our lives in general to be more penitential?
Nick, happy Thanksgiving.
You too, Joe.
Shane, what should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
I don't know if anything should necessarily be off the table, but probably the Ukraine crap, because too many people are blue-pilled and they believe that, oh, well, Russia bad, Putin bad, and Ukraine good, freedom, give them money. And so I'd say probably, I mean, again, there's the whole thing with the missile landing in Poland. That's definitely topical. So, and everyone's, pointing the finger at Putin. So I'd probably say that's a go-to thing. I mean, last year was the whole things. That's kind of, there's still issues. There's still obviously healthy people dying from but the number one thing I think on my list would be the Ukraine situation.
Don't talk about it or talk about it.
Talk about it, definitely, for sure.
Thank you, Shane. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Next. Dr. William Mahoney.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
May I ask you a few questions?
You may.
It's just one. What should people talk about or maybe not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Religion and politics. Just bring it up. Don't worry about it. Be yourself. Be honest. Can I tell you a little story?
How long is it?
Maybe roughly 30 seconds.
We can do 30 seconds.
We can do 30 seconds. Once upon a time, we all agreed in my family that the siblings would not talk about religion or politics. And the most non in agreement with us showed up, agreed to this, and then showed up and all handed us a copy of the Constitution and then went on to talk about the politics and everything else. So I've learned a very valuable lesson from that. The left will never stop talking, so why should you?
Happy Thanksgiving, Dr. Mahoney.
Thank you.
You heard it here. David Nussman. Hello. Happy Thanksgiving, David.
Happy Thanksgiving.
What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Can I give answers to one of each? So should talk about things you're thankful for and specifically thankful to God for. That'll really bug any family members who aren't religious, but that's a good thing. What not to talk about? Don't talk about NFP. There's some people who don't really have decorum and talk about things like that. There's a time and place. Thanksgiving dinner isn't it?
Thanksgiving. No NFP for Thanksgiving dinner.
I guess, yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Happy Thanksgiving, bro.
You too.
Miss Mary, may I ask you, what should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, I think people should talk about everything, but the most important thing they should talk about is the crisis that we're in our country right now, which, of course, is the crisis that emanated from the church. Yes, talk about the regular things. How are your midterm exams? But hey, how about those midterm elections? Our country is a huge crisis, a huge crossroads, and now is the time to talk about your eternal salvation.
Thank you.
Catholic or stay Catholic.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everyone.
Mr. Alexander Carson.
What?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hi. Happy Thanksgiving too.
What should people talk about or maybe not talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner?
I mean, the news on Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, the headlines they're making. That's I'll leave that up to your own judgment as to whether or not you talk about that.
Happy Thanksgiving, Alex.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Miss K. Happy Thanksgiving, Miss K.
Oh, thank you.
What should people talk about or not talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table?
Well, I would definitely advise not talking about weight loss or personal trainers or anything along that line. Don't want to go there.
So don't say, hey, I know a guy. None of that.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, never. Or even talk about comparing weight loss plans or talk about, anything related to fitness or, just enjoy the food.
Thank you, Kay. Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too.
Mr. Paul,
Yes, Joseph.
may I ask you a question?
You may ask me 3.
What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, I think if it's not religion or politics, it's not worth talking about.
Amen. But what if it's uncomfortable, Paul?
Well, I say that tongue in cheek. I kind of mean it deep down, but there's always the virtue of prudence that needs to be tapped into when in situations like this, because you're around family or friends that obviously, well, not obviously, but very often don't think like you, and the most basic premises that there are about life. So I would say, look for an opening, speak the truth when you prudently can and should, and then do a little bit of the shallow conversation, and maybe say a little bit about what you're doing. And then very often that leads to people asking you about what you're doing or why you're doing it. And then that leads to more of an opening to speaking the truth, which is always a good thing.
Well said. Happy Thanksgiving, Paul.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe.
Hunter, James, Nadia. Yes. Circle around. Our old co-hosts.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing back memories. What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner? Who wants to go first? Ladies first?
I'm going to hold it or? Okay. That's rule number 1. All right. First of all, it depends where you're going. I don't think, at least with my family, everyone's pretty split depending on what side you go to. So if you're going to the side that's opposite you and everything, just keep it simple. Catch up, lovey-dovey, good. If you're if you're when you can be, and if you're with the side that is hopefully Catholic or conservative, that's the time where you can have more free reign, I think. And not that needs to be talked about either. So again, keep it light, like it's Thanksgiving. But if you want to talk about that in the election and stuff, like you can, it's not going to be a big deal. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Miss Nadia. James, Hunter, who's next?
James.
Ladies first.
He wants to go last.
Yeah, I do.
I think that anything should be open for discussion. Religion, politics, anything. Even the Detroit Lions during Thanksgiving. But I'm kind of a big it is actually. I'm kind of a big believer in don't like attack them with it. Let it happen organically. So more where you are. But I think there's really no excuse to like not bring it up or not talk about it with family members, because a lot of them are lost or don't know certain things about the Catholic faith, and we need to bring them in.
Amen. Hunter, best for last. James won't talk about the Lions. You probably won't want to talk about the Longhorns.
I don't want to talk about the Lions. I want to talk. No, I don't want to talk about them either. I want to talk about homosexuality and the hierarchy. But I do understand that it's Thanksgiving. You don't necessarily want to create the discussion, but I think you can steer the discussion. Souls are at stake. There are many problems in the church that even people in the church, in the pews, don't even understand, much less know. And it takes someone who's courageous enough to bring it up and say those things. So that's one topic. I think you can talk about the Eucharist, giving that Eucharistia means Thanksgiving. I think it's pretty poignant and appropriate. But yeah, and you can also talk about the Lions because they're probably playing. I mean, they play every Thanksgiving. So yeah, those two things: Lions and Eucharist, and homosexuality and the hierarchy.
He knows his faith, but not his math. Thank you, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. This one we have to approach delicately. It's a wild Joe Enders at work. Got to be careful approaching this one because they're known to bite and be vicious. So you have to poke and prod gently. Joe Enders, I have a question for you. What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving?
Well, I would say the first thing that you shouldn't talk about at Thanksgiving is probably Kanye West, because I think he might be a little bit of a polarizing figure at the moment.
What about anything else, Joe?
Yeah, something you should talk about at Thanksgiving dinner is becoming a premium subscriber to Church Militant, because good grief, that would be a big help to all of us. So all of you better donate. And Ronan, I know you're going to donate.
All right,
give me your wallet
cut
right
it,
now.
cut it. Miss Emily, you're an editor here with Church Militant. You're involved in the evening news productions. What do you think people should talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, usually I've been told, religion and politics is stuff that you shouldn't usually talk about with family, but I think it all depends on like who your family is. Like if they're, depending on if they're, closer to your views or opposing your views, and like how they'd react to what you're talking about, because you don't want to cause division, but you want to make them see your side of the situations going on in the world.
Absolutely, souls are at stake. Miss Emily, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hello, Sean.
Hey, what's up?
What should people talk about or not talk about at Thanksgiving dinner?
How thankful everybody is for Trump's.
Happy Thanksgiving, Sean.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Jonathan, what should people talk about or not talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table?
Oh, we should be talking about politics and religion. Instead of not talking about politics and religion, we need to, wake up, I guess, and get people aware of what's going on in our country and stuff.
No, that's well said. Thank you, Jonathan. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Ryan Souls.
Yes, sir.
What should people talk about or maybe not talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table?
Ooh, well, first thing, they should definitely talk about how not to eat turkey on Thanksgiving because turkey is subpar when it comes to Thanksgiving dinner.
In comparison to what?
To beef.
Are you kidding me?
No, not at all. But for real, what they should really do is focus on, converting the Protestants, teach them the real faith, not a buffet style, as some people like to call it.
But what if it's uncomfortable?
Too bad. Life's not comfortable, but the truth will always set you free.
Happy Thanksgiving, Ryan.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, by the way, turkey's the best.
All right.
Away from grace, run into the box, run it, check it.